Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list I was hoping was going to be something completely different, but I went down to my LCS and I was asking about the notes that I sent in for grading, and I sent them in a month ago, and I was hoping to have them back by now so I could do my next few videos on them. And well, they said it's still going to be another 6 to 8 weeks because they're really backed up. So, with about 24 hours to spare, I figured I better put together a video because Sunday's coming up and I need a top 10 list. Now, the downside of having all of those notes out for grading is I can't use any of them as part of my top 10 lists. But I was curious, what kind of stuff do I have laying on my work table? That is what I decided to make my top 10 list. The top 10 lists that have been sitting on my work table that I have taken out for one reason or another. And those 10 notes, in and of themselves, make for a pretty good collection. So I'll let you guys be the judge. Top 10 notes that were on my workbench. All right, number 10. I have my impossible dollar. My impossible dollar was one of the notes that I was keeping out on there for one reason or another. And why is it an impossible dollar? Well, you can see this error here. The error is on the Federal Reserve seal. Excuse me. And that error, well, you would think would make this an extremely valuable note because this is supposed to be over here. The problem is when this seal is printed, it's printed at the exact same time that these 12s are printed. And you'll notice somehow that 12 is printed in the same spot as that seal, which is physically impossible. You cannot do that. You can have all of this stuff rotated, but you cannot have this seal over that 12 because they're both printed at the same time. It just can't possibly happen. I got this really cheap at a show. I'm not trying to say that it's a fancy error. I just think it's really cool that somebody was able to fake this. They were able to get it off of here, move it to this side. Don't know how it was done. Maybe it was a printer. I have no idea. I just think it's cool, so I call it my impossible dollar. That's number 10 on the list. Number 9. Number 9, I have a fancy that is not a $1 note. This one is a $5 bill. And what's the fancy part of it? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fives in a row. There is a sixth 5, and the only other 2 digits are 2s. So it's a binary. It's 5 in a row, it's 6 of a kind, and it's a $5 bill, not a 1. Most people don't collect a lot of the fancies that aren't $1 bills because if you start collecting 20 or 30 rare $5 bills, well, now you've got a lot of money invested just in face value. So you don't see a lot of people saving fancies on higher denominations. I've got it. I've saved it. I spotted it. Mine's in good condition. Yes, I'm definitely going to keep this one. That is number 9, $5 fancy. Number 8. Stepping up a little bit, this one is a $10 with a fancy serial number on it. Also a binary, 3s and 4s on there. And kind of a neat pattern, but I mean nothing spectacular. Just the binary in and of itself. Once again, also the note is in really good condition. So it's a note that I wanted to keep when I saw it. 333434444. And just, it's a cool note. If the 4 and the 3 were flipped, that would have been cool. You'd have double quads, 333, 444. But yeah, ifs and buts. I know. Still, I spotted this in circulation. I grabbed it. I put it in a sleeve. It was in good shape, and I intend to keep it that way. So that one is number 8 on my list. Number 7. Just a $1 silver certificate. It's in decent condition. Not in the greatest of shape, but it's okay. But this is a Series 1935. Now, there are a lot of 1935 silver certificates. The series went all the way to H, if I remember correctly. So you've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Just the longest string of series that you can imagine. So why is this note special? Because this is a series of 1935, and it's considered the 1935 plain. It has the series over here instead of having the series over here. They do list it on this side here as well. But normally you're going to see series of 1935 and then a letter over here designating the particular series. But the first series, the 35 plain, that's all it is. It's over here You've got nothing here. And if you're going through a stack of silver certificates that somebody's trying to sell for $2 or $3 a piece, well, that makes this one different. I'm not saying it's priced more or less, but it does make it different. And anytime there's something that's a little different, that's a little more desirable. And even if the price is the same now, that doesn't mean the price is going to be the same in the future. People like different. So yeah, scooping up these when the price is roughly the same as the other ones, not a bad idea. That is number 7, 10, 9, 8, 7. Number 6 on my list. Also going with a silver certificate, this is like the only star note I have from this particular series. This is a 1928A, and you can see it is a star note. They put the stars to start the note in these particular series. We're used to seeing the stars on this side. And like I said, it's not in the greatest of shape, but I don't have a whole lot of older star notes. And star notes, especially the older ones, can start to get really expensive. I happened to spot this one, and like I said, not being in the greatest of shape, I knew I was going to get it for a decent price. And since I didn't have this particular star note, it was definitely worth it for me to add to my collection. So yeah, 1928A. Now, 1928, that's the first year that small size notes were actually out. Prior to 1928, you have the large size notes. That makes this just a little bit more special from the first run. And technically it's the second run because you can see it's the series of 1928A. So there were 1928s and then 1928As. And of course, this is also known as the funny back because of the design on the back. And funny backs are kind of cool because what the reason they got their name is the 28, the 28A looked like these, the 34s looked like these, but then in 1935, that's when they started changing the backs to what we're used to seeing. And they kept that 1935 series going well into the 1950s. So it would be, you would see notes very common with these backs here. And every once in a while, you'd spot a back that looked a little different. It would look a little funny. So these didn't get the nickname funny backs until after the fact. But some people also look at that and say, well, that looks like Monopoly money. It's interesting people say that because Monopoly came out in, I want to say 1939, 1933, 1939, somewhere in that range. And the designers of Monopoly looked at the back of modern currency at the time, and this was the back that they saw. So Monopoly money's design is based off of the back of this particular bill. So yeah, it looks like play money because they designed the play money to look like the money of the time. So that's just kind of interesting. Yet another reason to have a funny back. All right. Number 5 on my list. I went with a $50 note. Now, this is a Federal Reserve Bank, this is a national bank note, not a Federal Reserve Bank note. It's called national currency. You can see that right across the top. National currency came in 2 forms. It came as national banknotes like these and Federal Reserve banknotes. They were both printed on the national currency border like this. But this one is a national banknote. It is backed by the particular bank. This one was the Bank of America National Trust and Savings Association of San Francisco. Very famous number here, the 13044. If I remember correctly, that's because this is the bank that became the Bank of America today, if I recall correctly. But this note is a little bit more special than that because this is known as a Type 2. There were 2 types of national currencies. The Type 1 looks exactly like this. The only difference between the Type 1 and the Type 2 is the addition of the red numbers right here. And these red numbers next to the serial number match the charter number on the side. So the Type 1s didn't have that there. The Type 2s do. The Type 2s, they came out, I want to say in 1933, and they were only out from 33, 34, and 35, whereas the Type 1s were from 1929, 30, 31, 32, 33. So there's a lot more Type 1s than there are Type 2s. And this is the only Type 2 that I have in my collection. So I wanted to make sure to get one, even though it isn't in the greatest of shape. 50s are always cool to have, and to have a 50 that's a Type 2, yeah, that was good enough to make it in my collection. All right, number 4 on my list. Once again, going with an older star note. It's a $10 star note. You can see this one is from 1934, the 1934C series at that. Now, these are cool because you get the giant stars in the familiar location that we're used to seeing, being on the right like that. The stars, of course, are solid, and yeah, you don't get a chance to get a lot of these stars. These start to go up in price really quickly, especially when you're talking about better grades. And since I don't have a lot of these stars, anytime I have the opportunity to get one, especially one that's graded, because then there's no debate over the actual value of the note itself, I like to pick them up. And if I can pick them up for a good price, all the better. So yeah, a 1934C star note, $10 star note. It is the dark green, not the light green. And there's actually less of the dark green, if I recall. But everybody wants the light green just because it's such a cool looking note. That one is number 4 on my list. Number 3, I talked about this one to some people in the comments. A lot of these notes I've talked to various people are in the comments, which is why they were still out, because I wanted to check my notes. What I've got here is a Series 2003 $2 note, and it is a star, single star note. Okay, so Series 2003 $2 single star note. One star note in here. This particular one happens to be from the Federal Reserve of Atlanta, and this is how it was issued. It was issued in this little folder like this. It comes with this whole little deal here, which is pretty cool. It's got all this background. This is the important part. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing produced only 16,000 of these Series 2003 $2 star notes, representing the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. So with only 16,000 of these made, think about that. There are people that collect coins that are, wildly hunting out stuff where there's 1 million or 2 million made. There was only 2 million of these made. We've got to find one. Okay, they made 16,000 of these, and you can tell by the serial number, it's number 2,556. Yes, this is how it was designed to be, but that doesn't change the fact that there's only 16,000 of them. And even with that rareness, you can get these for $30, $30 to $50 without a problem. Tell me these aren't set to go up in value. So yeah, get one of these while you can. You can find these because people that don't know would take them out of here and they would spend them. So yeah, they can be found in circulation. But if I can buy this entire folder with a note that's really nice in it, if I can get this for between $30 and $60, depending on the Federal Reserve, then what does that make the raw note that's been circulated worth? See, not a whole lot. So if you're going to get one that's in one of these folders, and that way you can appreciate the value as well, because these are the ones that are going to hold the value. Like I said, out of only 16,000, that's not a lot at all. All right, that was number 3. Number 2. Stepping up a little bit, this was a Type 1 national banknote. This is my $100 national banknote. I was double checking some stuff on 100, so that's why this one was still out. National currency, this one from the Merchants National Bank of Aurora, Illinois. Nationals, once again, the Fed would come out and make sure that the bank was solvent, make sure that the bank had money, the bank wasn't going to close, and then would allow the bank to put money on deposit. And doing so, that would be backing this money that was printed. It's basically a way for the government to get the bank to loan the government money and then be able to print whatever amount that was. So let's say it was $1 million face value. This is probably a good way to explain it. If a bank would put $1 million on deposit with the federal government, that means the federal government had $1 million that they could do what they wanted with. Then they could also print $1 million worth of money with this particular bank on those notes, thus making the federal government have $1 million in the bank and $1 million in notes they could then put in circulation. Now, what's to stop the government from taking the $1 million that was put on deposit and putting that back in circulation too? Exactly. So this was their first encounter with how to get more money in circulation. Yes, of course, our government would still be responsible for guaranteeing the value of this, but since nobody's actually going to do all the record keeping and everybody believes in the full faith and trust of our government, there was no real need for them to keep that money, so to speak. Anyway, that's part of the history of nationals. And the reasoning, like I said, was to double the amount of money in circulation. That is number 2, my $100 note. Number 1 on the list. another cool $100 bill that I have. This particular one is from 1928, and it is 1928, no other series or anything like that. Series of 1928, you can see that specifically. 1928 $100 Federal Reserve note. 1928 was the first year for Federal Reserve notes, and it was the year that you would find redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury or in gold or lawful money at any Federal Reserve Bank. People call these gold certificates. They're not. This is a Federal Reserve Bank, Federal Reserve note. It is not backed by anything, okay? Gold certificates were backed by gold. Silver certificates were backed by silver. Federal Reserve notes are backed by the Federal Reserve saying it's worth that. So why does it say redeemable in gold? Well, in 1928, we had $20 gold coins, $10 gold coins, $5 gold coins, etc. And you could take this to the bank and get 5 $20 gold coins. So yes, it was redeemable in gold. All of our money was redeemable in gold, which is why all of these pieces of paper had redeemable in gold written on it, so that everybody knew it was okay to spend the paper as if it was gold, because this note is much easier to carry around than 5 ounces of gold. And it's much easier to spend. So that is the whole reason for that particular saying. Anyway, I like the 1928 note because when they first came out, they didn't use the letters for the Federal Reserve. They used the number. This would be Atlanta right here. You can see the familiar 6s for Atlanta here. And instead of putting the letter F in the center, they put the number 6 as well, and they only use the F designation as part of the serial number. I'm always a big fan of the back of the notes as well, so I want to make sure I show that. But yeah, the 1928 $100 note, the very first small-sized $100 bill produced. That was the look of it. Really cool note. Like I said, I was doing some comparisons. That's why this one was out. So there you have it. Top 10 notes that have been sitting on my workbench. If you guys learned anything new this week, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, please subscribe. Love reading all your comments. I'll see you again next week.